welcome back. Okay, now since the last video, thank you so much. A return to what we were going to do right at the very start, and as I've already said millions of times, I'm suspending the little nose cone for now. Now, last video, I picked up a bullet wound just here. I was grinding away. I didn't see this until I was editing. I didn't see it had got so bad. I was grinding away, and a little piece of the blue Scotch pad grinding mop broke free and hit me right there. I had these on, and it kind of just got in underneath, bop, and hit me there like a little bullet, whack. Now, I didn't know at the time of recording and looking at the camera that it had swollen up and it looked like a little bullet wound there. So there it is, it's kind of gone 4 days later. Just honestly, a message always, you know, eye protection. A few of you said you should wear a face shield. Yes, you're right, but of course, when you're grinding, the noise of that thing over many years will gradually make you deaf. I've measured that grinder, it's 112 decibels when it's screaming away, and that's without the noise it makes against the metal. When you're grinding steel, it's even louder. So of course, protect your hearing. I always wear the old Amplivox, and then these, and the Amplivox, and the mask as well to protect from the dust. When you're grinding, wearing a face shield is impossible because it goes around your head like a welding mask. So to try and wear all that on your bonds at the same time, it just doesn't work. One doesn't go with the other, it all gets caught up with itself and it doesn't work. So it ends up these, the big old bins, which I always wear, and that's what protected my eyes. It's got the side protection too, but that little piece of grip just got in under there and smacked me real hard. So honestly, I know I put it as a byline, and I only did that because I didn't see the injury it caused while I was filming. I only saw it on editing, so I put a little line up, always wear your eye protection, and I'm now going to say it out loud, always wear your eye protection, seriously. You're going to get one pair of eyes. I've had a piece of grit, metal splinter dug out my eye with a needle. You know, it's not the best day you'll have in your life, so you know, there you go, if it helps. Right, today back onto this. Now, I know the last video was quite long, but I had to say those thank yous to those wonderfully generous people. Thank you again to them, but today we haven't got any of that to do. It's back in with a vengeance. I want to pull the back wheel out, grind all that flaky chrome off around the perimeter where it is, and in the inner bit, which is good, I'm going to leave that and clean it up, and we're going to have a two-tone shiny and black rear wheel, which I think will look quite nice. It will give an accent because there's going to be some chrome left on the bike, but not nearly as much as there is now. So there we are. Let's get stuck in. Right, there's a wheel ready to make a start on, but before I even go near it, straight back to the axle, rebuild all the spacers, nuts, washers, all in order, and put them through the swing arm so I know exactly how they go when we rebuild it. Okay, get into that as a workshop practice. It will save you a lot of time messing about trying to find schematic diagrams and stuff online at what order the spacers go in, because they've got mixed up, or worse still, one's rolled under the bench somewhere and you can't find it, or you didn't even see it go because you elbowed it or nudged it. It disappeared when you were busy doing something else, and when you come to put it back together, you can't fathom out what's wrong. And I get those emails all the time. So seriously, bung it all back together in the correct order, putting it back together as a piece of cake. Anyway, onto the wheel. Right, now, the old pulley underneath there, that's going in the recycle trash. It's completely beyond repair. Might make something out of it, don't know, but at the moment it's just going to use to stand the wheel on. I'm going to stand it on that, take the disc off first. Now this has had a serious brake upgrade. I've got Brembo floating discs and Brembo 4-pot calipers on this front and rear. Now that's a serious score. You know, the brakes on Harleys are legendary for being rubbish, so this is a great upgrade. The discs themselves are in fabulous condition. It's a recent upgrade. They've probably only done a few thousand miles. The chrome on them is pretty much perfect on the caliper side, but on this, the rotor in the middle of the disc, it's in a sorry old state. So I'm going to have to take that apart, take the rotor off the outside and get the carrier free, and then grind all that chrome and stuff that's flaking away off, and then paint it, because there's no need to put more chrome on it. It doesn't need it, and then put it back together. Now this has got little buttons there. I'm going to have to research whether it needs new ones or whether these ones will go back on. They're the kind that have got a little circlip in the rear. I should be able to remove them, shouldn't be a difficulty, but the first job is to get it off. And they are T50, I think. So let's get the disc off first of all before we do anything else. Right, a good clean up. Now they turn out to be T45, not T50, lucky guess. I'm going to use this Wiha ErgoStar kit. It's a kit of Allen keys, but they're Torx. So you can see they're Torx keys. And I'm going to use this because I've never used it before. It's a brand new kit. I've never had it. I always like my T-bars, and I've just never used this yet. So using a brand new tool is a great way to make sure you're not going to mince them. Using a worn Torx key, you're more likely to mince it up. All these keys, things like Allen keys also, as they get worn, chuck them away because they'll cause you more problems. So the other thing I'm going to do, why I want to use an L key rather than a handheld T-bar, is I want to be able to put it into the fastener, lean on it like I showed recently, and use the hammer, tapping against it, to keep it driven into the fastener. These fasteners, obviously, they're quite shallow. I reckon there's only about 3 or 4 millimeters of depth in that hole, so that doesn't go down very far, and it's quite easy when you're really leaning on it for it to climb out of the hole, and as it climbs out, it chews it. World of hurt. You've then got a chewed up bolt, and you've got a raft of different remedies for that, but it's just time, effort and grief, and makes you want to give it all up. So seriously, I hope they all come out crack, 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 nice and cleanly. They will be thread locked, but they're not tight. I think the torque value on these in the past jobs I've done is about 28 foot-pounds. It's not much. I'll correct that. I'll put it on the screen because I can't remember off the top of my head. But they're not a high torque value. It's not hundreds of foot-pounds holding them in. It's just they have to be uniform and thread locked. And anything that's been thread locked, you never know how hard it's going to be to get it out, because it doesn't just crack and then spin out. It's a lot of work to get it all the way out. So you have to take care right to the last bit. And if they've been used with red permanent thread lock, which you should use on the pulley, which I'm going to have to use on the pulley, then that could be even harder. So I'm going to take it off the bench because it's moving around too much here, put it on the floor and do that technique again with the hammer and the key and see if I can knock all 5 of those off without any drama. Wish me luck. Don't do them in a circle, always go in a star pattern if you can. That is a real poo banter, it really is. Honestly, if you've ever had one of these chew out, you'll know what a nightmare and a drama it is to get it out once it's chewed. And thankfully, they've all gone. So hopefully you can see that technique. It has never failed for me so far. I didn't want to say that before I did this, because this could have been the first. And that one was definitely the tightest, but they've all moved now half a turn, so they should all come out okay now. And if you like, if you want to, sometimes you can use a little heat on this area to break the thread lock if it's getting really difficult. However, be extremely careful because there's a rubber seal there around this outside. Obviously it's a disc, so if you go heating it with a blowtorch, then you could warp it, and there's the tyre and there's the wheel and there's the painted surfaces. So honestly, I prefer to struggle all day long than use heat and then cause a problem. There we go. One Brembo disc. Right, now as you can see from this tin foil peeling off, this is the typical thing that so many motorcycle manufacturers do, and that is chrome plating aluminium. I just never believe in it. I don't think it's a clever science. It doesn't obviously work for very long. It just peels off. This isn't the original rear wheel. Obviously, if you know your Dyna Wide Glide, it had a spoked rear wheel. I kind of would like a spoked rear wheel because this is like another, like the front wheel. That's about 15, 16 kilos, but then back wheels are always that much heavier. If I could get a spoke wheel for it, I can come back to that later. I am hunting around for the right deal, but at the moment, I got this one. Now this, as you probably recognise if you know your Harleys, that's a pretty classic wheel. It's in many bikes. Fat Boy, for instance, that's the Fat Boy front and rear wheel, I believe. And also, I think XL 1200 Custom, or the XL 1200C, Sportster. I think that had the same rear wheel. It's the same 3.5 inch with a 130 tyre, super narrow original Harley rim, and it's, as you can see, pickled up, chrome peeling off like tin foil. That's just trashed. Now, a buddy of mine, Twizzle, said he could polish this for me, and I really appreciate that, Twiz, but I can't afford all the time and effort in the future to keep it polished. Once you polish a wheel, you make a rod for your own back. This bike is a rider, it's not going to be a poser. I just want this on the road, I can wipe it clean, and that's it. And in my experience of now using the Street Fighter with all of that tough black paint on the rims and stuff, it's just incredible. When it gets filthy, you just wipe it with a cloth and it comes clean, and I like that concept. So with this, I'm going to get the discs out very gently. I'm going to start with a standard sanding disc that's been annihilated. It's really blunt, there's no life left in it, it's very, very mild, and I'm just going to very gently touch a few little bits of this chrome just to see if it'll get the chrome off, obviously, but just to see if it damages the rim underneath. If it stops there and just leaves a nice brushed finish, that's fine. If not, then I've still got the sanding Scotch Brite fleece that I used for the forks, and I know that did no damage to them. It left a lovely sandable finish, and if that comes to it, I'll do that on it as well. But I want to use that on both sides of the rim, so I'm not going to tear straight into it with that, because it's the last one I've got. I just haven't got time to get to the weld shop and buy some more. And there, incidentally, what I said in the last video, there's the brown one, the polishing one. It's a little bit annihilated, and as you can see, when they get to that state like that and they start breaking up, that's what caused me a wound the other day. A piece of this broke off and smacked me in the cheek. So once they get to that point, don't use them anymore. They are toast. Anyway, that's waffle. Let's get some of this crap ground off here. Very carefully and very gently. See how it goes. This is what I'm doing with this. It's working better than I thought. Really chuffed with this. It's taking all the chrome and all the nickel off, but when it gets to the aluminium casting, it stops. What I'm doing is using all my old annihilated discs. These are sanding discs that I've dressed welds down with. So when I get a weld and I dress it down flat with these, that's what these are for. And they're kind of completely flattened off. They're really mild now. I mean, they started out as a 30 or 40 grit. Pretty vicious, take out stainless steel in seconds, but now there's just nothing left of them. But I do keep them for just such a job. And all I'm doing is just touching with the edge, this lip edge of the disc, just touching it, literally not even the weight of the grinder, just touching it gently on there and just rubbing the chrome away. It goes yellow, so you see the nickel coming through, rub that away until it goes silver and you're into the aluminium. So I'm actually taking away all of the chrome, all of the nickel, and all of the mess, and it's coming up beautiful. It really is. Now, once I've done all of these, I'll go over it with the Scotch Brite disc and smooth it all off, and that'll be a nice paintable finish. Absolutely loving it. I didn't know that this would work, but I'm so glad I exercise a policy of keeping all my old discs. I never throw them away. I just leave them over there in a stack, because you never know when you might need them. They've always got a little bit of life left in them for something, and it saves you buying more, because they ain't cheap. Right, let's get on with it. Right, what a mess. That's been 5 hours, would you believe? It's 2 PM now. Came in here at 9 o'clock this morning and made a start on this to get the wheel out. And there it is, prepped. That's all the chrome ground off, all the blistered, bubbled nickel, all taken away. I've got this centre, the whole wheel's been chromed, and that means this centre, which is a sand cast finish, it has held on to the chrome really well, and it's flawless. There's no interruptions in the chrome around here whatsoever, either side. And I keep cleaning that just a little bit, but that is it. So the outside strip was the only area that was really bad. And now that I've got it all ground off, now I could, at this stage, as I've said, give this to a good buddy of mine who does polishing, and he's got all the relevant mops and polishing equipment, and he'll get right in there and he could bring that up mirror perfect. But I just don't want a mirror polish wheel because it's just too much work, too much grief. Every time you go out, you're dreading every puddle. It's going to be black because I can wipe it clean. It's as simple as that. As I've already said, at the risk of repeating myself, this bike's going to be a rider, not a poser. So I'm just going to paint it. So now I'm going to have a clear up, clean myself up, clean up this area, move the table in, stand this up on some axle stands so I can spin it, and then mask off the center. Once that's done, I can paint it. But before that, after 5 hours of that, need a cup of tea? Right, there we are. Okay, ready to paint. 3 PM now, so 6 hours to get to this point. That's how it goes. Preparation is 9/10 of any paint job, and I'm ready to squirt the paint over that and then walk away and leave it. Before I do, just a quick explanation. These cards, you can see what goes on, don't need to explain that. The reason I've always done it that way is it allows me to get paint right into the back of that crease there, right in on the edge of the rim, without actually touching the tyre. No matter how well you mask up your tyre with pin tape or anything like that, pinstripe tape, whatever, doesn't matter. You will always get a little bit of the paint will go over and it will bond against the tyre. And when the future comes and you take that tyre off, that bond between tyre and paint and rim, it will crack, split a piece of the paint away, and you'll get a chip, and it just looks nasty. So this way, there's no contact whatsoever, guaranteed, because these are tucked in behind the rim. There's no way that the paint from the rim will get onto the tyre and form that skin, causing chipping later on. Nice way to do it. Normally, I would pull those back, take them into position, and then mask right the way across, but I don't need to. This tyre's going in the bin. It's a Dunlop D401 Harley Davidson tyre. They're made out of mahogany. They're just horrible. They don't grip, they don't wear, they perish long before they go bald or anything like that. So it's most important, but that is going in the bin. I will chuck it out, but I just don't want to get any paint on it at this point because it causes problems with this joint around the edge. That is purely to preserve the paint edge around the rim, not the tyre. That's what these cards are for. So there we are. I'm going to shut up. It's all masked up. It's all completely ready to go. It's all degreased. I'm going to get some gloves on, get a mask on, and squirt some paint. Right, here we are. Okay, 7 hours today, it's 4 p.m. now, and 6 of those was preparation. That's always the way it goes. I just want to give you one more tip on these cards, the little trick with those for masking. The purpose of them is to get in behind that rim to make sure absolutely no paint touches the tyre whatsoever. Don't matter how good you are at masking that line, it doesn't matter, you'll always get some on there. The cards ensure that you get none. But you then build up a skin between the rim and the card surface. So don't leave the cards in overnight while the paint dries. Take the cards out while they're wet, otherwise that skin will form. When you pull the cards out, it will tear the paint and make a mess. So take them out while it's still wet, but at the same time don't pump the tyre back up, because right now that rim is nicely exposed and it's loose, the tyre's only sitting there against it, but if I pump the tyre back up to its full pressure, it squeezes it out onto the rim, and that could make contact with the wet paint and cause problems in the future once it's bonded onto it. So that's it. Happy with that, great look, and exactly what I wanted. Not too bling, nice and easy wipe clean, because this, again, at the risk of repeating myself, is going to be a rider. Now another little thing, finally, for the next video, is going to be this. This is a Brembo disc. I've never seen one of these before, not like this. It's got the little Brembo logo on there. And as you've seen, it's got the Brembo 4-pot calipers, and they are lovely. That is lovely, but the chrome on it isn't lovely. It's nasty. I'm going to check with Brembo or a supplier at Brembo and find out if I can replace this carrier with a black anodized one. That would be superb. I can't grind that surface chrome off there. It's just too thin. I'm not sure it's the sort of thing I want to be doing. I'd rather replace it. The rotor is absolutely superb. I need to check with Brembo whether these buttons can be removed and replaced. They are kind of removable. They've got these little circlips on the back like that you can just flip out with a screwdriver, but I need to ask, you know, are they reusable or are they single use, and do you sell them and obviously can you get me a rotor for the rear as well, and I'll get one for the front while I'm at it. So I want to refurbish these Brembo brakes and use them because they are a million times better than Harley Davidson brakes. One of these is better than 1,000 Harley brakes. It seriously is, and I want to make use of those. They were a massive investment for the last owner. I've seen the invoice, quite frightening, so I want to make sure I can use them. But I need to do some research. So talk to Brembo, find out if I can get that. If I can use them, dum-de-dum-de-dum, and if I can, and if I do, that will be the next video. Also, I've just invested in some rather astonishing suspension for the bike. It is going to be the biggest investment of the build, but I think suspension on a Harley with better braking and a better tyre than this mahogany one obviously is going to make the bike handle. As I've said so many times, it's a rider, so I want it to be able to be ridden hard without any mercy and still be safe. So there we are, join us for the next one. Thank you for your amazing support, really appreciate it, and all of your cool comments. That's today's Ride Safe. See you next time.
That's life of an outlaw man.